Sure. So essentially, there's a lot of options in the market. So there was a lot of studying to work out which one was best for me, and that would help me in my current role and my future role as well. Particular reason for this one is I knew EC Council from how well and well known the CEH certification is. So I used that as a good kind of recognition as to how good the ECIH would possibly be in that regard. So it gave me a good content to go with and a well-structured course to learn all the key fundamentals that I needed to. Sure. So as a SOC professional at the time that I took the certification, what it became apparent was that you needed to learn a lot about every field in security, especially if you're working in the security operations center. Then you need to know a little bit about everything. So what motivated me was instant handling and instant response. I'll use both terms interchangeably, is knowing what to do in an emergency situation, and learning that and being comfortable and prepared in that regard made me very comfortable in my role, but also really valuable out in the marketplace, because dealing with emergencies in those situations is a really good feature and skill set to have. So it's valuable for yourself, but also to another organization. So that's really helpful. So it influenced in a way where the course allowed me to understand exactly what I needed to know. So there comes a situation generally in these areas of security where you don't know what you don't know, as the term goes. So this course structured everything really well for me and helped me understand what are the key areas of instant handling and response that I need to know and I need to spend more time on. So whilst the internet has a lot of free and valuable resources, nothing is structured as well as the ECIH course provided me, and I felt confident after I completed the course, in addition to the certification, that I had a really good foundational understanding of this area of security. So it's really helpful that the course provides you resources that you can use in real-world scenarios that you may have come across before, and in my case is some which I didn't, so that was really helpful. So the instructor was able to share his experience as in a similar role and what resources were valuable in these situations, and that's really good to move from a place of just learning theory and being able to apply those in a real work-life environment. So that was really valuable for me, and knowing what other professionals use in that sector. So that was another really good thing for me, is kind of extracting resources that real professionals use and that are just there available to kind of further help investigations in instant handling, as it were. What I think was useful in my own journey is that a lot of what I had learned in security was self-taught up until this stage. So having a course where another professional and other professionals on the call were all discussing what they would do in similar scenarios, that was really helpful for me as well, just getting a really good basis understanding and being able to kind of talk it through with other people that had more experience and actually gone through incidents and scenarios that I hadn't yet gone through. So that was really valuable for me. Sure. So I think generally speaking in the security types role, and I've alluded before, is that you end up having to know a little bit about everything. So in that respect, the course went through scenarios which most of which I've now come across in roles. So after doing the certification, I've done further roles and gained more experience. And by and large, I've come across almost all scenarios that we talked about in the course itself. So that was really good, because the course essentially gave a really good insight as to what an incident handler or security professional could face in their future career. And in majority of cases, it proved to be right, as I found in my experience. In terms of a specific scenario, I can't disclose one per se because it's organization specific, but it was a really thought-provoking course. So I would say, and add another saying in there, you'll get out of the course what you put in. And in my case, I found that I was really thinking about these scenarios of incident response, and it led me to preventative measures as well. So incident response is kind of the last chain of events that happens. The course kind of made me think about scenarios and preventative measures that we could put in place that actually meant that we didn't need to get to the incident response stage. So I think that was really valuable, and I was able to add my own opinions and values and pursue those and roll those out in the organisation that I was working in. So I think from that point it is really useful. So I just kind of take that point on board, that really pay attention to the course content and don't use it as a way just to think of incident response. You can apply the learning in other areas of the NIST chain of security, especially those preventative measures. Yeah, so I have completed other courses and training, but they've been very tool specific, and those tools are specific to the organization where I work and worked previously. So I would say they're probably not good comparables to discuss. However, I would say, just as a general rule of thumb, the ECIH course was really wide ranging. So it covered a lot of different scenarios which I hadn't had the inclination to think about or consider before. So that was really useful to start thinking outside of the security role that I was in at the time and think about incident response as a wider learning platform. So that was really good, and it encouraged me to pursue other areas of security, such as learning more about web security and cloud security, two really key things that are in trend right now. And when I did the course, they weren't as well known in the security field or taking place, but they are now. So again, I think ECIH done a really good job of having a good insight as to what future security landscape would look like, and I'm finding those are proving really valuable in hindsight as well. Sure, so I would say as a general security professional, this course is really useful. So initially I went in with the mindset that this was more for SOC kind of employees and incident handlers, generally defending roles and blue teamers. However, I actually had a conversation with someone on the course, and they were actually a pen tester, and they worked very closely with other red teamers as well. And they used the course to actually improve in their area of security, to try and second guess what the blue teamers and incident handlers would do to actually become better pen testers. So that was a really useful insight and a very different perspective that I hadn't considered before. But in my role, I am generally in that blue team role, and I intend to be in that area for the foreseeable future. I think it's really useful because, again, in all areas of security, you can be really valuable. If you can help in any way to an emergency situation, that's when you'll be really valuable to the company where you're working and be able to support them through a time of need. So if that situation alone is what you achieve, then it's really useful. Yeah, working in the field, I can say that's a really hard goal to achieve, because the goalposts are constantly moving and the technology is moving at a rapid pace, more than any one individual can ever really keep up with. However, that said, the course at the time, and I've alluded to earlier, really had a good insight as to what content should be put inside the course, notably, which I mentioned before, web security and cloud security. And at the time, in the role that I had, that wasn't as useful. However, in latter positions that I've had, it has been really useful, and I refer back to things that I learned from that course and material that I gained from there, which I'm still using to this day. So it's actually really well aligned. I think, can you align everything that you'll ever need? That's going to be difficult because it depends on the role that you do, your own career aspirations, but broadly speaking, I think it does a really good job. I would say in terms of gaps, it's really difficult because you end up in a situation where you establish with yourself that you don't know what you don't know. So you need some guidance as to, if you're looking to pursue incident handling or response, these are the core areas that you should and need to know, and kind of develop on those further. So it's trying to avoid a situation where if you go at your own accord, which I would have usually done prior to this, is you end up learning material that might not be relevant to the role that you're trying to pursue or the career that you're in. So I think it is really useful for the course to kind of aggregate all the key learning that you need to be aware of. I would say after you've completed the course, are you going to magically become a professional in the field? Probably not, depending on what the role requirements are of where you are at the moment and where you plan to go. But it will provide you a really good foundation as to what you should know in core areas. So you should be, as a professional, referring back to this content time and time again and trying to, gain more insight and knowledge in those areas. But it's definitely a good starting point for anyone who hasn't had experience in that sector before, or your role isn't, you're not lucky enough in your role where you kind of have that instant response experience. So this course is the next best thing to that.